Hi, I am Falatimi Akinriade. I have my clinical doctorate in occupational therapy and my bachelor's degree in recreational therapy. And this YouTube channel is to provide general knowledge and education regarding what I do in pediatrics, working with children of all abilities. This YouTube video will discuss what pediatric occupational therapy is and the type of children that we work with. So occupational therapy addresses how an individual is able to reach their highest level of function and independence with activities that they do on a day-to-day basis. So what tasks occupy their time during the day? That's where the occupation part comes from. So for me, on a day-to-day basis, I eat, I sleep, I take a shower, I get dressed, I socialize with friends and family, and I go to work, and I'm able to complete all of the tasks and duties required of me at my job. With children, obviously it's based off their age, where they might receive help from a parent, but on a day-to-day basis, we expect children to be able to eat, sleep, get dressed, take a bath, play, be able to interact with their friends and their family, be able to attend school and actively participate in school, whether that means that they're sitting and attending to what the teacher is saying, but also being able to color, scribble, write their name, anything within that school environment. And we also expect children to try and hit their developmental milestones. This is something that occupies their day-to-day life. It's something that's important because as they grow, they're able to meet more of the demands that are happening with their environment, but also within themselves as well. So within OT, if a child is having difficulty completing any of their everyday tasks, we help them and assist them in being able to be successful in whatever challenges or issues that they're having with those occupations. So if a child is having a difficult time coloring or scribbling, we know that that's a precursor to them being able to write their name and later on be able to write sentences and essays and everything else in between. So it's something that we address now, so then they're successful and they continue to be successful as they get older. So the biggest goal within pediatric OT is to ensure that a child is able to actively participate and engage in tasks that they complete on a day-to-day basis, which includes being able to learn, play, and socialize with others. I do want to say that OTs do not cure or diagnose any conditions. I cannot diagnose a child with autism. I cannot diagnose a child with ADHD, but I can work with a child who may or may not have that diagnosis and help them with whatever challenges they may be facing. So if they're having a hard time sitting still and attending to things in class, what things can I help provide them with as far as resources or interventions or tools in order for them to be successful in that area? A lot of times we do have kids that come into OT and they may not have a diagnosis or condition. They may just be struggling with one or two things, and we come in, we help them, and they're fine, and they continue to grow and develop without any services. And then there also might be children that we see that maybe they don't have a diagnosis, and we notice a few challenges or difficulties, and we may recommend that they go and get an assessment or evaluation from a medical doctor or a psychologist. They may come back and we find out that the child does have a diagnosis. It doesn't matter whether a child has a diagnosis or not. We don't look at the diagnosis, we look at challenges the child has and how we're able to help them progress with whatever challenges they are facing with activities they do on a daily basis. So as OTs, we are trained to look at the whole body, and we have a very holistic approach to our treatment. Not only look at specific body functions and structures like muscle strength, senses, or mental functions, we also look at skill sets. So some of the skill sets that we may look at or address with children are their fine motor skills, so how their fingers are working. So this may be us looking at how a child is able to hold their fork or their spoon when they're eating, how they're able to hold their pencil when they're wanting to write their name, if the child's able to tie their shoes or button up their shirt. We may look at a child's sensory processing, so how the child's able to perceive and take in sensory stimuli, whether it's from the environment or within their own body. So does a child get really startled or frightened when they hear loud noises or they're in a busy environment? Or if a child has difficulty sitting still at a desk because their body's constantly seeking movement and they're constantly moving. We look at executive functioning. So is a child able to initiate, plan, and complete activities or ideas that they have or that other people have for them? So are they able to come up with a play idea, and are they able to do it from start to finish, where they need a lot of help, where they just need to reel things in and be able to start, finish, and complete that play task or idea? Does the child have difficulty transitioning from one task to another? Do they need a lot of reminders in order to go to the next task or activity, whether it's at school or at home? And does the child have safety awareness? Can the child look around and notice what things they can't play with because they're dangerous? Or does the child have a really hard time understanding that, and the parent or caregiver constantly needs to be around that child to make sure that they don't get themselves in harm's way? We look at gross motor skills. So is the child able to coordinate the movements within their body and be able to climb up on all of the equipment on a playground? Or do they constantly trip or fall because they're having difficulty getting on those things? Is the child able to maintain their balance? Is the child able to get dressed or put on their pants while they're standing up? Or do they have a hard time maintaining that balance and they need help in that area so they don't fall when they're doing that? We look at social emotional skills. So is the child able to play and interact with peers their age, or do they have a hard time interacting with kids? Or does the child get upset very easily and constantly and have huge, big reactions to things that we normally wouldn't expect to happen? And we also look at functional communication. Does the child have the skill set to be able to communicate their needs and wants, whether that means it's from a verbal standpoint or through gestures, or do they have a communication device that they're able to use in order to communicate their needs and wants? So this is just a few of the skill sets that we address. Again, there's so many more, but we don't expect parents, caregivers, or teachers to know all these things as well. Typically what happens is that a parent comes to us and says, my child's having difficulty with X, Y, Z. And then what we do as OTs is we look at all of these different functions and skill sets, and we watch the child and assess the child and figure out what are the pieces that are making it difficult for this child to successfully complete whatever task that is. So for example, if I have a child that's having difficulty with coloring or scribbling, I might look at a few things. I might look at their fine motor skills, so how they're holding the pencil. I might look at their visual perceptual skills, so are they able to imitate or identify certain things that I'm drawing or completing. I might look at their attention or their environment that they're in. There's a lot of pieces that I might look in to identify why that child's having difficulty with coloring. Another example is if I'm working with a child that maybe has autism and is having a hard time sitting at the dinner table or is having a hard time sitting within a classroom setting, I might look at a few things. So I might look at sensory processing. I might see, is this child's body constantly seeking movement or input and they constantly need to move around? I might look at the child's postural control. Is the child able to sit at a table and be able to maintain that posture sitting up? Or is it hard for them and that's why they're constantly moving around? There's so many different pieces that I would look at and assess, and it's based on that individual child. And as we all know, not all children are the same. Those are the things that we think of and we put all together because we want to make sure that we're covering all bases and figuring out why that child's having difficulty with those tasks. So all in all, OTs basically work on everything. Not really. We don't work on everything, but our scope of service is pretty broad because, again, our goal is figuring out how we're able to help a child be able to complete their everyday tasks. One thing I do love about OT is at least for myself and other OTs that I work with, we're really good at knowing of all the resources that are around in our area. So if there's something that I'm working on with a child that I realize, like, I think that this is a little bit outside of my scope, I think this is the type of specialist you might need for your child, or I think that this would be a good resource for you guys to look into. But again, this usually all happens after a parent has already gone to the child's doctor, their family doctor, medical physician, to rule out any other medical concerns or issues. So if you are interested in occupational therapy, I do recommend that you start off with going to your child's doctor first. And then after that, they send them over to OT if it's warranted. And then that's when an evaluation, treatment plan of care is all set up. Thank you all for watching. I hope this was helpful information. I know OT covers a lot of bases, so I tried to make it in a way that hopefully you all can understand. If you have any comments or questions, please definitely comment below. And thank you all for watching and listening. Bye.